Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very excited to have today with me Mr. Ashley Marshall, General Manager of Government for Australia Post. Ashley, how are you?
G'day, Rob. I'm fantastic. Happy Tuesday to you.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, it's a great day. Very windy down in Melbourne. Of course, you're up in Queensland today, Ash.
I'm in Burke Street, Melbourne today, Rob.
We're in Burke Street, Melbourne. Well, finally, we got the man out of Queensland. We'll talk about that because you're a passionate Queenslander. I know that much. Hey,
Indeed.
Ash, what is the? Let's start off with a great question for you. What does the word possibility mean to you?
Oh, Rob. Possibility means options. It means choice. It means things may happen if you choose for them to happen. So it's about what you choose.
I like that. That's the decision between taking possibility into probability, isn't it? It's that choice to
Absolutely.
make it, to be intentional about it. I love that. Yeah. Now let's talk about some of your leadership journey. Who were your mentors when you were growing up, and some of your mentors and heroes when you were a young Ashley?
Oh, crikey. Probably my grandparents, actually, on both sides, both very different. On my dad's side, my grandfather was a bootmaker and his wife was a homemaker. On my mum's side, they were wealthy pastoralists from Western Queensland, had big sheep and cattle station, but really just solid family people, good values of work hard, respect everyone, care for the environment, and never stop trying. And then also, some of my girlfriend's dads, actually, they were entrepreneurs and successful businessmen, and really great dads, great family men. So between those, they really shaped they were my heroes and shaped my thinking as a young man growing up.
So Ash, tell me about this. So did these dates go a little bit like, look, I'm really great to know you, but tell me more about your father.
Indeed. And look, you own the Ford dealership, so how about a new car at a special price?
That's right. Oh, that's right. You must have come across as so sincere.
Absolutely.
What about today? Things have changed so much. We're living in a very different world, as you know more than most. Who are some of the heroes and mentors today for you, or in contemporary times?
Well, look, I'm going to start off with a couple of ladies, Aussie ladies, Sigrid and Merle Thornton. So most people would know Sigrid. She's a fantastic Australian actress, done some incredible work. But her mum, to me, in the year of my birth in 1965, at the Regatta Hotel in Brisbane, she and another lady, Rosalie Borgia, chained themselves to the bar in the public bar at the Regatta Hotel in protest at women being excluded from public bars in Queensland and Australia in 1965. And because of her, what I would call really seminal work, we see a lot of the changes that now mean that there's a lot more equality with men and women. And I just admire that. I think it's incredible. Second one for me would be Yuval Noah Harari. So Professor Harari's vision for the future, some of his writings I find incredible, and he gives some practical advice. And one of his sayings, I'm going to try and remember this now, so forgive me if I get it wrong, but it's something like, you could never convince a monkey to give you a banana by promising him limitless bananas after death in monkey heaven. And I just think that's so practical. And then probably the third one, Johnny Wilkinson, who was the best English rugby union kicker ever, in my view. Johnny, who in their right mind, Rob, would get up every morning in freezing cold England, in a freezing cold winter, and even on Christmas Day, kick 100 balls over the goalpost before going to Christmas lunch. Johnny did that, and he kicked the winning goal against Australia in 2003 at the Rugby World Cup. And, that commitment paid off for him. So those three really, to me, are very contemporary and have shaped a lot of my thinking about what it means to be part of this wonderful global village we live in.
You know, Ash, I had erased Johnny Wilkinson's name from my memory from 2003 after watching him kick that goal. I was in a motel in Sale. You've brought back quite horrific memories for me, Ash. I think I might terminate this podcast right now.
I was in the fetal position in the corner and having trauma counselling for many years after that, Rob.
Wow, it's no. With all due respect, he is an outstanding athlete and professional, isn't he? I mean, I think what you talked about there was the intensity, but the persistence to keep it going and keep it going. And we see this time and time again, don't we, from sports people? I think when people say that, hey, that's an amazing shot that he took. Actually, he's been practicing that for a long time, and we don't recognize it.
Overnight success after 25 years of practice.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you've had a long career. Initially, a lot of work in technology. You spent a lot of time, with people like Optus, Motorola, Nortel. But what attracted you to technology? How did you get involved in the tech space?
Well, look, I'd come back from a stint overseas. I was working in Papua New Guinea, and I came back to Australia, and I saw how technology was on a real growth trajectory. So I decided that I'd go and do a diploma of electronics engineering. So I did that, and then I just spoke to a few people, and mainly networking and word of mouth. And whilst I achieved those roles through merit, certainly I say to my people, probability of success is inversely proportionate to distance from customer. And so those relationships and those connections certainly helped in having, a contact on the inside with those organisations. So that was probably it. I just saw the growth trajectory, thought it was something that could be, allow me to create some fun and games, and talk to a few people, and here we are today.
It's interesting, isn't it? That's a great comment you made about, finding out the inverse relationship between distance with customers. And I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to the podcast with Michael Oates. We did. And Mike, some advice Michael was given when he was a young man in sales was find out where the money is and go there often. And I thought that was a really... Which is a similar thing, isn't it? Find out where it's growing, and technology in your case was there where you believe the money was there, and you're definitely right. But also go there often. Like don't be shy about it, and keep close to your customers. I think there's nothing bad ever comes from keeping close to customers. That's something I've always believed. At least you'll find out the bad stuff, but you'll also keep close to the good stuff. Now you've obviously you've been to Australia Post quite a while. What led you to Australia Post from the technology side of things?
Well, look, I can't believe it's 6 years. It seems like 6 minutes. And if someone had said to me 10 years ago, you'll work at Australia Post for at least 6 years, I would have said, you're kidding. But so for me, it was Andrew Walduck and Gary Starr. Their vision to build a multi-million-dollar trusted e-commerce solutions business. I got a phone call from Gary one day saying, we want to get this thing up and running, and I've been here a few months. Can you put yourself forward and go through a process? And the opportunity then to be part of that and to do that in a really anchored way to serve our communities is probably the thing that's been the thing that's not only led me to Australia Post, but has attracted me to remain at Australia Post, because it's that higher level of not just the tech world. You can make some really good money and deliver some great outcomes. Well, you can do that as well as serve your community and have that real public purpose focus at Post. And not many places you can do that. So that's what's been the driver for me, Rob.
And you're now 6 years into that journey. How does it feel going forward?
Oh, look, I think we're just getting started. We've had a massive change in the focus from the old TES, Trusted E-commerce Solutions, to more of an e-commerce and parcels delivery business. And in a government context, that's been really exciting to build out our logistics business and maintain all our digital services to government as well. So exciting days ahead, lots to be done, lots of work ahead of us.
And one of the things I wanted to ask you specifically, Ash, was I remember a number of times you and I have spoken, and we were talking about the government and the wheels of the government moving, and sometimes they don't move as fast as we'd like. And inside post, sometimes post doesn't move as fast as we'd like. But what we saw, and I know, and you expressed this to me directly, was when the pandemic hit, it was amazing how both organisations, this big government, but also Australia Post, was actually quite agile and nimble. What do you think drove that? What do you think was sort of made it happen more than, say, it happened in 2020, but you couldn't really make it happen in 2019? What do you put that down to?
Well, I think, Rob, two things. I'll talk about what I saw, how Australia Post respond, and that for me is just something that's deeply ingrained in the DNA of Australia Post. Australia Post has got this. It's hard to define, but it's there, and it's this do good for our communities. And during, the bushfires and right through the COVID period, I've witnessed just random acts of kindness where people just go above and beyond. And so I think there's that deeply ingrained DNA to do good for our communities. And from a government perspective, becoming agile and responding quickly, who's government? Government is people. People like you and me doing a great work for public purpose. I'm really not surprised when bureaucrats, get out of the way and give people the empowerment that they've actually always had, but have to get out of the way to get outcomes done, and people can be their best selves. And we've seen that both within Australia Post as well as within our within the public service of Australia at federal, state and local government levels. We just see people just, being empowered to go out there and deliver outcomes in the moment, and things that would take 3 months being done same day. And we had examples of it here in Victoria where, we delivered PPE for health, and typically to get a contract and a service stood up, it'd be 3 months. And we took a phone call in the morning, and the next morning we were doing deliveries for them. So it's amazing what can happen if you empower people to make decisions and serve their community. So that's been great.
So Ash, when you talk about, you mentioned that people were empowered. When they're empowered, they got going, and I think you mentioned the bureaucrats got out of the way. So
that's right.
What you're really saying there was there's the ability, there's the talent and the ability in both, in the government specifically, and in sometimes also in Australia Post. But when we empowered the talent and the ability, we got this incredible action.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And that was a choice that we had to make. Do we follow the rules that are there, the guardrails that are there, or do we actually just step forward in the moment, trust that we've, it's a little bit like the Johnny Wilkinson thing where you're kicking for that last goal at the last minute, and you trust your people, you let them go and know that they're going to do the right thing. And we've just seen that over and over. So many courageous decisions that have led to great outcomes for community, and that's been something that's been unique to Australia Post.
Do you think that, I'll keep us to corporate Australia, not specific to Australia Post, but do you think sometimes we put the guardrails up too much?
Oh, for sure. I mean, you look at what's happened with the Royal Commissions into some of our greatest and trusted institutions, and you can see why we do that. But equally, it's important in the moment, especially if it's a crisis, Rob, to give people, to trust people, to let them be their best selves, and to be empowered to go and just deliver an outcome in the moment.
It's interesting, isn't it? Sometimes, if you hire well, you recruit well, and I know you focus a lot on this. You're recruiting well, you're hiring well, and then not to empower people. Sometimes it's almost like sort of fitting the Ferrari engine in or the Maserati engine in, but like only giving it 4 spark plugs instead of 8, and going, well, it's really great, it can obviously do it, but we'll just hold it back a little bit, and it can get frustrating for some of the good people you recruit too, can't it?
Oh, it certainly can. And I suppose I've been practicing for 30 odd years serving government at all levels. And one of the things I've learned is that, again, a rugby term, it's time on paddock. You need to be there for a long time to have that trust and to understand the machinery of government, the processes, that it's not quite the same as enterprise or corporate Australia, where you've got MOGs, machinery of government changes happening all the time. You've got application and use of public money. So there's got to be transparent and fair and open processes. And so for people who haven't had sort of come through that government procurement process, it can be quite frustrating and challenging to learn that. But once you learn the magic of it and you understand the way that the dynamics work, you can have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, I 100% agree. So give me a couple of things on that, Ash. So let's just say I've done, a certain amount of years in enterprise sales or corporate sales, enterprise sales in the private enterprise. And I want to work for Ashley Marshall in enterprise, but I'm going to move across to government. I want to be focused on, say, federal government. What would be some key tips, maybe 3 things that would be different from that enterprise private sales person role to what my expectations would be if I go across to government?
Well, look, I think the first thing is to understand there is both a political dimension and a bureaucratic dimension. And quite often the two don't necessarily synchronise. So you'll have, a member of parliament doing a vox pop doorstop and get almost trapped into committing to something. And then in the afternoon, the bureaucrats are calling saying, I have to deliver this because the minister said so. So there is 2 very different sets of agendas there. And our role as a provider within that context is to firstly understand that dynamic and the interplay between the 2. And then secondly, to help them being the bureaucrats and the ministers, stay off the front page of the paper and practice the quiet art of diplomacy in the background and get on with just delivering great outcomes. So sometimes knowing your customer better than they think you know them, so that you can help them be their best selves. That's probably the first thing. The second thing would be just appreciate that everything you do is in the public eye. So everything you say, whether it's on social media, whether it's what you put in an email, whether it's said, sometimes what is unsaid. So it's those acts are in the public eye and they're on the public record. So just be mindful of that. And then the third one is, just never give up. Just ABC, always be closing.
Yeah. It's really interesting. So that's a persistency, isn't it, in there? And being known, I think, for being persistent, because I think it gets back to your time in the paddock one, I think, which is earning your credibility. You understand the landscape. You understand, I think, that really interesting, the political dimension that's there. And it's not a sinister thing. It just happens to be the bureaucrats and the ministers, and they get caught deer in headlights sometimes, and other times there's things moving. I through the pandemic, the thing for me was just amazing how, political views aside, how well all governments moved, whatever they were doing, and a lot of that is the bureaucrats. I imagine that just how well they moved and flexed and were as nimble and agile, and combined with post, it's exciting to say, hey, you know what, it did happen. You actually got to see it move really quickly, and I know I'd experienced that a little bit with Victorian government, some work I'd done down there, and especially with the bushfires we had down here a few years ago. I was doing a TV program with David Koch, and we felt terrible for the Black Saturday bushfires. And what we were focused on was rebuilding the businesses, because if the businesses don't get up, then people don't get employed, and there's no housing, and the communities don't go. So we had to focus on getting businesses up. And so I remember David Koch called me and said, well, I've got Channel 7 to give us a slot Sunday week. Can you make it happen with the government? And I'm like, a week. But to your point, and it's something you would easily be able to do, just having to know just the connections, the landscape, and be able to say, hey, this is what we're doing. I know you've got due process. I totally get it, but we're going to do this in 7 days because we've given this slot. And the ability for those bureaucrats who are just wonderful to turn it around really quickly to, I wouldn't say cut red tape, but maybe just flex a little bit. It was maybe lycra tape to get it done within process. That's for the good of the community. And I think where that's the bit I think that I've seen government and Post really respond well when you go, you know what, there's a community need out here. And Post just seems to just be able to just unbelievably fast.
Yeah, look, I agree, and I think there's business. We're seeing business recognise that they need to be part of community. We're seeing profit with purpose, so the non-for-profit sector, who either typically receive funds from government or deliver services into the community, being more agile as well. We're seeing that with Australia Post, and I think, you know, we'll look back post-pandemic and really appreciate how great we as a nation have come together to look after each other. Sure, we've got some structural issues and there's some challenges around mental health that will take some time to work through. That notwithstanding, when you compare where we are right now to the rest of the world, we're in a really fine place, and that's a tribute to us all.
For sure. Now, look, you've always been someone with a growth mindset. You've always been, you know, always willing to learn. And I've always really admired that, Ash, in terms of the workshops that you and I've done together. You've always just been such a great contributor. One of the things you went back and did an MBA, I think, in 2004. It was you were probably so depressed after the Johnny Wilkinson issue, you decided to go back and study. But what did you learn from doing the MBA? What were some big highlights for you?
Oh, look, I think probably the most important one, Rob, for me was work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Recognise that you are your greatest asset. You are your best brand. And probably the 4 Ps of marketing: product, place, promotion, price. Apply those to your own life. Apply those to your business and deliver sustainable competitive advantage for yourself and for your customers. You know, I could certainly unpack those things, but that would be the main points.
That's a great one, Ash. I've actually never heard anyone do the 4 Ps back on their own personal brand, but I think that's really insightful. And in fact, it really ties, if I'm just recalling our conversations around you getting into technology space, you pretty much did that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it's about having, so you've got to have done the training and had the qualification, so the product's got to be right. You've got to be in the right place at the right time, but that's about possibilities and choice and putting yourself there, right? Promotion is about building that brand, that social selling index, about creating the best you can. And then price is about not being greedy and creating value and, you know, delivering, having a track record of delivery at a good price.
Well, yeah, but delivering way in excess of what they're paying you or what's expected. You know, kind of return, value. Isn't it? It's a return. Yeah, I think I really like that. Hey, what do you look for in leaders when you're recruiting leaders? And I'm going to put add a little bit on here. Is there anything that's changed during the pandemic that you're now looking for something else when you're recruiting new leaders?
Look, I don't think it has. For me, first thing is curiosity. I want someone that's going to question things and really try to understand, how does this all hang together? And okay, this is explicit, this is what's being said, but what's not being said? What's the unsaid? What does that really mean? So curiosity for me is really important. Humility is also important. To me, you know, it's all about putting our customer first and being proud for them. And so then probably the third one is just around a track record of success. Even if they're like a junior person coming into an inside sales role, it's important that you can see that person is growing, has that growth mindset, and has that commitment to growth. So that kind of work harder on yourself than you do on your job will come through when you have conversations with people, when you're going through that recruitment process, and that's really important to me.
Yeah, a sense of curiosity, isn't it, to be able to just ask the questions and just be. I think I was once told a great line, which was, you know, be interested and interesting.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it might have been you that said to me, be bright, be brief, and be gone. Well, I mean, that's not a bad one either. You know, someone that does a lot of this isn't doing a lot of this. So,
Well, that's true. That's true for if I'm talking with and I'll put that in context. I was talking if you're talking with a D or a DI disc style, Ash, which we know you are as well. That's yeah. Be brief, be brilliant, be gone. Why you, why now, why this?
Exactly.
That's how you and I've always worked. Doesn't work so well on the C types, but the D's it definitely helps out. Hey, look, if we could, you and I could jump in the time machine and go back and catch up with 15-year-old Ashley, what would be some words of advice for Ashley?
Oh, Cuggy. Oh, don't sweat the small stuff. Just be honest with yourself. Treat others with love, with respect, and I guess as Bob Marley says, don't worry about a thing. Everything's going to be all right. And I live that. I live that with my daughters, 3 daughters and a son. And it's just really important to I say at post, never a bad day at post, because it's about keeping things in perspective.
Yeah, I really like that. I've I got a shirt. I must send you a copy, which has got the slogan, "What if it does work out?"
Exactly.
Because our natural, we always go to, it's never going to work out, or, oh my God, what if this happens? But actually, what if it does work out? What's the 3 positive things that might come out of this, particular dilemma or decision that I'm making, as opposed to the 3 worst ones? So, hey, Ash, it's been fantastic to catch up with you. It's been long overdue, this chat, and I've really enjoyed it. And it's going to be great to take some of our great private conversations public in a podcast at long last.
Just you and me, Rob, in private. I love
it. Just you and a few friends. Thanks so much, Ash. Appreciate it.
Have a great day. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoyed this episode of the It's All Possible podcast. Please subscribe and rate the podcast you listen to so we can continue to serve you and inspire others. Remember, connect to us on all the social media channels. The It's All Possible podcast is hosted by me, Rob Hartnett, and produced by the phenomena that is Finn Hartnett. Connect with us via LinkedIn, Instagram, or the link tree in the show notes.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.